Thomas Frank unfortunately got it very wrong against Bournemouth. And credit where credit's due, Bournemouth got everything right. Iraola did very well at not letting us play our game. And to be honest, I think we hindered ourselves as well. Look, Spurs lost to Bournemouth 1-0. And I think, look, after the first two games, we were all ecstatic. I think we were playing different every game. We had different setups. We had good plans for the opposition. And it just felt like to me that Thomas Frank got the setup wrong this time. Look, as you can see from the lineups, I've just sort of set it up as it is from how we had our goal kicks and when we had possession at the back with Vicario and the two centre-backs. And look, you can see, I think Bentancur and Palhinha for me just was not the right choice. When I first saw the lineup come out, I wasn't so sure about it because I didn't think we had any way of progressing up the pitch, especially being at home. And whilst this exact team played against Man City and were very, very good against Man City, we did the job of baiting the press, which we tried to do a bit with Bournemouth as well. But I think the key difference between this game and the Man City game is we were not winning our duels. The exact same players in the exact same setup, trying to build up in the exact same way. We were losing every single battle to the Bournemouth players. And their whole setup was great. So let's get into it now as to what was going wrong for Spurs and maybe what was going right for Bournemouth as well. So this is roughly, as you can see, how we would set up, how we would want to build up, and also how Bournemouth would press us. Now, what's interesting is that, like City, they did press us quite high with the front five. It was mainly, Scott and Tavernier from the midfield that were pressing quite high up. Adams stayed a little bit further back than the other two, acting as the defensive midfielder. Semenyo obviously pushing high on the left side, which, by the way, this was a complete mismatch and something that Thomas Frank rectified later on in the match, but I just don't think he necessarily maybe did it quick enough, or there wasn't maybe a plan B for it in-game to avoid these sort of scenarios. Evan Nilsson was obviously pressing high as the main attacker, and Brooks on the right side. So their front five did press quite high, very similar to how Man City did as well. I think the key difference is, what was very smart and what you will notice here as well, is it was quite lopsided. And I'll back this up with, the average position map of Bournemouth. So you can see it right here, right? You can see ours on the left. You kind of see the three at the back. Ignore Spence's. Spence's is a bit off because obviously during the game, he actually swapped to right back. So it makes his average position look way off. Another key difference was Sarr. You can see here, Sarr was playing a lot deeper than what he did against Man City. And I noticed this during the game. He wasn't pressing as high with Richarlison. You can see it here, Richarlison playing a bit further up. He kind of had to do a lot of the legwork himself. Neither of those two could get a hold of this game or in this game at all. But like I said, we've got our midfield three all really tight, close, deeper, wanting to collect the ball. Whereas you can see on the Bournemouth side of things, Alex Scott pressing high up on the left-hand side. Notice how heavy they are pushing to the side where Porro is for us. Semenyo really high up. Truffat's a lot higher up than his counterparts Hill and Smith. Alex Scott's pushing a lot higher up on the left side compared to Adams on the right. There was a clear direction, target Porro, and let's be fair, Semenyo had him for toast all game long, and there's a reason. And I think Thomas Frank did a good job actually subbing him off and bringing a doggy on and putting Spence on that side, because it did look a lot better after that, even if Semenyo shouldn't have technically been on the pitch. But you see, there was clear vision, a clear plan, pressed the left-hand side for two reasons. The first is Porro is technically our weakest defender out of the lot, and Semenyo just won that battle all day long. And the second reason was, when we are in a position like this, when we've got the ball at the back, it forces us to go towards Van der Ven. And this happened numerous amount of times. We weren't really going long that much to our forwards like we were in some previous matches. It was very heavily Vicario to Romero or Van der Ven, but because of how high they were pressing on this left-hand side, it really forced us to go towards Van der Ven. That was a great plan from Bournemouth, fantastic planning, because for two reasons. They realised our passing ability out the back only comes from Romero and Porro, especially when we have Bentancur and Palhinha, which is why I think this was the wrong decision to have those two as our defensive midfielders in this game. And even Sarr, like I said, was coming back really defensive. So what ended up happening is they were pressing high up on our defenders. They were keeping quite a lot of their defence back, so that was leaving a gap in midfield. But they were fine with it because they were pushing our main passers in the team, letting the ball go to Van de Ven, who is a weaker passer compared to Romero and Porro, and especially Spence on the left side, because naturally Spence wants to use his right foot, so it's a lot harder for him to create on this left-hand side. And to be honest with you, him and Johnson had a completely disjointed relationship. I remember at one point in the game, there was here, I think Spence was overlapping, Johnson had the ball and he just passed it straight off the pitch. I mean, their relationship for that whole of that first half was just non-existent. And that's great. Bournemouth pushed us that way. And all it meant was Van de Ven got the ball and he tried to play it long into Richarlison so he could hold it up. But like I said before, Bournemouth were winning all of their duels. Richarlison could not handle the physicality of Diakite and Senesi, and then obviously they kept Adams back a fair bit as well on this right-hand side. We just could not get a hold of the ball. Like we saw on our average position map, Sarr was nowhere near as high. When we saw the difference was, with Man City, and it is again really, really smart from Iraola, with Man City, we tried to build up in the same sort of way. Palhinha or Bentancur would come a bit closer, maybe give an option, but because of how high they were pressing, what we did against City is we wanted to get to Romero, we wanted to get to Porro, because they would play a beautiful long ball over the top, and Sarr was over here. Sarr was really high up against Man City. It was completely different against Bournemouth. Sarr was so deep, he didn't look like he had any energy at all. And the only way we could get the ball up was through Van de Ven to Richarlison, and it just did not work. And to prove it exactly, that was the main plan. Look at our pass map. This is insane. The majority of it going from Van de Ven to Vicario, into Palhinha, back round to Romero. Like this passing metric, we could not progress from our defence and midfield. Look, no outlay whatsoever from Van de Ven to Johnson. It just was not working at all. And that was great pressing from Bournemouth to allow us to play on this left-hand side instead of Romero and Porro, who are much better passers. But equally, we didn't have an answer for that either. We weren't going on to Johnson from really deep like we did against PSG and those sort of games didn't work. And then if we compare that to Bournemouth, completely different. Look at the lanes. We've got Semenyo receiving the ball from 6 different players. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The plan was so obviously clear. Get the ball long to Semenyo, target Porro, have Truffert in support because he could not handle the two of them at all. And that was how they got success, and inevitably how they ended up getting their goal, because there was a huge, huge gap. And I mean, let's just say that I can't remember who had the ball. It was Senesi, because Senesi was the one that ended up assisting him, right? But there was a massive... We were defending. I think Palhinha was a bit further. Bentancur was about here. But what was happening was, because Porro... Semenyo was all the way out wide. I think Truffert was further up here. Because Porro was so preoccupied with these two, he left a ginormous gap between himself and Romero. And it was a great ball through to Senesi to see that. Because I'm not sure where Palhinha was positioned at the time. There was a huge, huge gap. Maybe Palhinha was about there also. I'm not too sure exactly. But basically, there was a huge gap between Porro and Romero. Evan Nilsson did a great run into that space as he saw that. Ball was played in. All right, Romero tried his best to get a sliding tackle in, but then it was rebounded over Vicario into the goal. I think Vicario was our best player by a mile, by the way, because it could have easily been 4-0 before half-time. But I think this whole defensive situation with Porro against Semenyo completely got cooked, especially with Truffert assisting. They were able to play out the back, play towards Semenyo really, really easily. Like I said, from this passing matrix, you can see they just were great combinations of building up and attacking us, compared to ours was just so deep and so heavily just to our centre-backs, who couldn't progress the ball up the pitch because they forced us onto Van de Ven's side, and because we had no progressive midfielders on the pitch to create another option. Palhinha would get the ball and play really, really safe passes into Bentancur, back towards defence, back towards Romero. It just didn't work. I think Frank got it wrong, and I think the players themselves just did not show the same energy that they did against Man City. These statistics blew my mind. Let's look at the first half, okay? I mean, for a start, no shots on target to their 10 and 2. Like, that is absolutely pathetic. Nothing in attack, 2 offsides. This is what worried me here. Bearing in mind, Thomas Frank team is focused so heavily on winning your duels, which we did so well against Man City. Look at this, 66% Bournemouth won. We were dispossessed 6 times. We lost way more ground duels than they did. We lost more aerial duels. We couldn't dribble as well as they could. They just had us beat in every single department when it came to being stronger than us. and not letting us play the way we wanted to. The second half, it improved. I think that's mainly for the subs. I think Bergvall did a good job in midfield. He brought a lot more energy into the team. That's the key thing I'm saying. A lot more energy than the likes of Palhinha and Bentancur, who were too similar. I know Palhinha is a lot stronger than Bentancur, but they are a very similar profile. Safe passers, looking to do a bit more of the defensive work, whereas Bergvall is someone who can carry the ball a lot better. Gray, to be fair, can also carry the ball a lot better. Sarr just seemed way off of it and couldn't get involved in the game at all. We really, truly lost the battle in midfield, and it cost us. But look, the duels were a bit better. Look, 53% to 47%. We performed better in ground duels, area duels. I think Tell and Odebear created probably our best chances in the game. I think Odebear should have done a bit better with his shot. Tell had a wicked volley from across from Spence. That was narrowly wide. Like I said, those three, Odebear, Tell, and Lucas Bergvall brought some... and Udogie as well. I think Udogie was great when he came on. They brought so much more energy to the team and different options at passing out the back, where we were so far too heavily focused on building up through Van der Ven. And it did look better for the last maybe 10, 15 minutes. Far too late at that point. The game plan was set by Bournemouth, and I think they did a great job. Very un-Thomas Frank-like, losing a lot of duels in the games. The fact that we couldn't really build up at all, where I think we do need to look for other options. I think Xavi Simons pretty much, fixes it. He adds to that massively. He will be able to help progress the ball, because he is quite similar to Maddison in that sense of someone that can drop a bit deeper, collect it, drive, dribble. He's got a great passing range. Got a bit of flair about him as well. So I think Xavi Simons is going to be much, much, much needed in that midfield, but we also need an option on the left, because, look, Johnson, for me, was absolutely non-existent. The ball was not sticking to him. I remember he passed it inwards at one point under barely any pressure. He passed it off the pitch to Spence, like I said. It was a really, really poor game from Johnson, if I'm being completely honest with you. So, look, Spurs, transfer deadline day is tomorrow. Obviously, it might be past by the time you're watching this video or ongoing. Desperately need a left winger that is similar to Kudus in the sense that they're a bit braver on the ball and maybe can sustain possession a bit better than Johnson can. Johnson, look, he's great at arriving at the back post, but when we aren't creating those opportunities, he becomes really ineffective. And look, this is a game where we could have done with Solanke. I think Solanke has much better strength than Richarlison. I mean, he knows Bournemouth quite well, obviously, to be fair, but it's a shame that he wasn't available. So we're just left short again. And I think we kind of had to have our substitutes bring much needed energy to change the game, and it fortunately just wasn't enough. We didn't create too many clear-cut chances, and the ones that we were close to, we probably could have done a bit better on. So, and look, I trust Thomas Frank beyond belief that he'll learn. He learned from PSG to Man City about not trying to sit back when you're 2-0 up. I have absolutely 100% faith that Thomas Frank and the team are going to watch us all back, and they're going to, I mean, I'm sure they know where they went wrong, and they're going to improve for next game. So I really do believe that they will do that, and I think we will improve, and fingers crossed we truly get this left winger in tomorrow, as well as potentially another centre-back in Nathan Ake, who's clearly the one that's linked the most, him and Akanji. If you like this sort of video, please make sure to like, subscribe. I'm really trying to go through this analytical journey. I love analysing games and seeing how can we set up, where can we improve, what did we do well, what did the opposition do well. And if you like this sort of content, then let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time.